Parsha actually is the double portion, Parshat Achemot and Kedoshim. We want to talk about something which honestly is a little bit sensitive. I'm not going to deny that. It's a very sensitive thing. And it's actually something that, our generation struggles with. So God willing, we're going to discuss that in the second Parsha, Parshat Kedoshim. Let's just read the verses so we don't make a mistake. It says, "No, Vaydaber Hashem el Moshe Lem," where God spoke to Moshe saying, it says, "Daber el koladat ben Esau," speak to all the Jews, "V'amarta aleim," and tell them, "Kedoshim tiyu," that they shall be holy. So we have a commandment. Sorry.
Watch out with the cup.
We have a commandment that we have to be holy. Now, what does it mean exactly? You got to be holy. What am I supposed to do to be holy? Have 5 holes instead of 4? I mean, what does it mean to be? How do I act to be holy? So the truth is, there's many explanations. We're going to go through Rashi, and then we're going to say the other ones too. So Rashi explains, whenever the Torah says you have to be holy, that means a person has to be separated from immorality or anything that brings a person close to immorality. Obviously, immorality, or what's the word for it? Everybody knows what immorality is, like having relations with someone who's not your own spouse. So that's called arayot, immorality. And then at the same time, you might do things that's not actual immorality. They don't really become very, very intimate with someone, but they do things that actually, it instigates the person to do immoral stuff. For example, hugging, kissing, or things that's not his own wife. And Rashi says, how do I know being holy means that a person has to be separated from immorality? So Rashi brings a few proofs. One of the proofs that Rashi brings, for example, he talks about Kohanim, the priests, that they have to be holy. So the Torah says, kedoshim too, you have to be holy regarding the Kohanim. So it says, for example, the Kohen is not allowed to marry certain women. Being a priest, for example, he's not allowed to marry a prostitute as a wife. But it says next to it, why not? Because he's holy. So we see that being separated from immorality, holiness comes with it too. Then Rashi says in another 2 places we also find that holiness includes another 2 things too. Not to worship idols, and another thing, believe it or not to eat non-kosher food. That's what Rashi says. Because the Torah says that it says, kedoshim tiyu, be holy, velo titamu, don't make yourself like contaminated with the unholy food. So regarding 3 things, you find the word of kedoshim, be holy. One is to be separate from immorality, separate from idol worship, and to be separated from non-kosher food. So I want to talk about a little bit, before we go to the other explanations of being holy. Really, what is so bad about immorality? I want to talk about it because especially we live in the United States, right? They never teach you in the high schools or colleges abstinence. They actually encourage you. They say do it, but do it in a safe way. Isn't that correct? They actually go around, they give you free condoms. That doesn't tell you not to do it. It tells you do it to use protection. And the reason is very simple. Our own teachers, our own, presidents, or these people that are immoral themselves, they do these things. So obviously, they're not going to tell you not to do things that they do themselves. The only thing that they don't do and they force you to do it is eating the food from the cafeteria in high school, right? You're not allowed to have any unhealthy food. You know that, right? But they themselves could have all the most unhealthy food. But honestly, putting all the jokes aside, we live in a society that it became like eating breakfast. Having a boyfriend, having a girlfriend, having multiple of them, and you'll be so much involved, it's like eating breakfast. It's nothing to be embarrassed of. So really, how do we explain that this thing is so bad that actually the kedusha, the holiness of a person depends on that? So we're going to explain it Kabbalistically a little bit. And then if you have any question, please do ask. Don't be embarrassed. You got to go through this. I hope I could bring a good explanation. Honestly, I could even talk about it socially, what kind of damages it can bring. If somebody is involved with intimacy before they get married, and we're going to discuss that a little. Let's talk about it Kabbalistically a little bit. You see, when there's always 2 forces, right? There's forces of holiness and there's forces of evil. When you do something good, as the Zohar says, holiness rests upon you. When somebody does something which is against God's will, when he does something immoral or bad, so impurity rests upon him. But the thing is, every other sin that we do, it doesn't necessarily uh, encompass or surround the entire person. Let me bring an example. Imagine if somebody goes and slaps somebody in the face. God forbid I slap you in your face. Which part of my body is involved in slapping you? Are you guys here? Just my hand. So the only part of my body and soul which is involved is only my hand. So that gets involved in a sin or evil. Let's say when somebody speaks something bad, only power of speech is involved, right? When it's somebody, whatever, anything you do, you don't have the entire body involved. When it comes to sexuality, if it's done in a sinful way, it's not only something that only one part, one limb of a person is involved. As you know, the entire body, all the emotions, everything is involved. And the proof is from such an act, an entire child could be born. If they don't use protection and the lady gets pregnant, the entire child is born. Not only that, the entire body and all the emotions of a person is involved in here. So if somebody does it in a proper way with his own spouse, so he's doing something holy. If he's doing it in an improper way with the wrong person, so the impurity actually surrounds the entire being of a human being. His entire being is involved. It's not only like hitting that only your hand is involved. That's number one. Okay? Go ahead. Okay, first of all, there's nothing for sure. The high school sweethearts, they don't always work. But again, the act is not holy until you get married. You know what I'm saying? But there's no guarantee you're gonna. But even if you're gonna end up marrying the person, you have to first make a unity between your two souls. Then you can enjoy each other. Otherwise, not allowed. Now, there's actually a bigger problem, guys. I'm gonna ask you, what do you think? Is it better to have if some? They're both bad. There's nothing better. What's worse? Again, it's gonna be something very, very sensitive. If a Jew has a Jewish girlfriend or a Jewish boyfriend, and a non-Jew having a non-Jewish boyfriend or girlfriend, or is it better that is it worse for a Jew to go with a non-Jew and interact and have intimacy? It's a very, very sensitive stuff. But I want to talk to you so at least we know what we're dealing with. What do you think is worse? You're saying a Jew with a non-Jew. Why is it worse? Why do you think it's worse?
Because they're just, without, in my opinion, the values don't align.
The what?
The values don't align.
The values are not the same, but again, the act is the same. Why is with a non-Jew worse?
Because it's not.
You're not marrying them, you know what I'm saying? You're not marrying them.
It's not what I grew up with.
So again, we're not prejudiced here. We're not racist. But this is something that I cannot prove to you logically. We're going to talk about the social things later on. But there is always, God put boundaries in the world. Not because Jews are better or Jews are worse. No. When you guys say Havdalah, are you guys familiar with Havdalah prayer? When you make Havdalah on wine, what are the words that we say? Hamavdil ben kodesh lechol. God separates between holy and non-holy. Ben or lechoshech, between light and darkness. Ben Israel la'amim, there's a separation between Jews and non-Jews. Again, not because we're better, not saying that. Can you ever mix day and night together? You can't. There's a boundary between them. Can you mix holy and non-holy together? Of course not. There's a boundary between them. Now, each human being has a mission. A Jew has his mission to do in life. A non-Jew has his or her mission. Again, a person as a lone being cannot fulfill his mission either, because you have to have a family set up to be able to do your mission. Again, my job is not only to make myself a better person. I'm supposed to marry a woman, or a woman marries a man, and together, they make each other better. Then they're supposed to have children, to make the society better, correct? So each one has their own mission. So what happens is, a Jew that marries a Jew, because again, and let me go a step back. Honestly, why do we get married even? It doesn't make sense. Isn't the European way better? Have a girlfriend for 40 years, and then when you get tired, just dump her and go, or dump him and go. Why? So choose somebody with that marriage. You're an honest guy, You're a good guy. I love you. What do you have to get married for? Forget it.
It shows commitment.
Oh, so you're telling me the whole purpose of marriage is because a guy shouldn't be a crooked guy? He should be committed. But if people were honest, you wouldn't need marriage. You know what I'm saying? It's getting a little bit scary. What's going on?
Isn't it a mitzvah that get married?
Exactly. So why the marriage? Just get a roommate, live together for 40 years. Hopefully it works out. If it doesn't work out, get separated. So you see, the truth is, we don't get married because we need a companionship. If you say marriage is companionship, if marriage is a companionship, marry anybody you want. Doesn't matter white, black, Chinese, doesn't make a difference. We believe concept of marriage is that you have to marry your soulmates. It's a merging of two souls because it's a God-given thing. So if you believe that marriage is not just companionship, again, if it's companionship, marry whoever you want. There's no problem. It's not companionship. It's actually God-given thing for two souls to merge. So then do it the way God wants to do it. That's what there's a marriage. Not just because of commitment, you're right. But it's not just because of commitment. It's because that's the only way, godly way, that your souls merge. So if a Jew is going to marry a non-Jew, or a non-Jew is going to marry a Jew, it's not that you're marrying a bad person. You're not letting them to fulfill their mission. It hurts the non-Jew as much as it hurts the Jew. They both get damaged the same way. Is that clear? So that's what it says. There's a separation between people. And a Muslim should marry a Muslim. A Christian should marry a Christian. A Jew should marry a Jew. Because these are the soulmates becoming one. Is that clear, people? So when somebody goes and marries a non-Jew, coming to your point, he's actually destroying the separation that God made. You get that? So it's not only that the entire being is being involved in the sin. It's not only that your entire being is involved in the sin, but you're actually destroying the boundaries that God made. That's why when you have intermarriage, it's the worst damage. Besides making the entire being impure, but you're actually destroying the boundaries that God made. That's what makes him very upset.
That's the way someone is doing transgressions.
You're destroying each other's, exactly. And you bring impurity on the entire body. So this was the concept. Now let's talk about social reasons. Was that clear so far, people? Why Kabbalistically is not proper to intermarry? Or besides that, not to do immoral acts, sexuality, which is not allowed. It's something that actually brings deep impurity on the person. Let's talk about socially. What's wrong, people, with having intimacy before you get married? Like breakfast, what's wrong? Eating is a pleasure. This is another pleasure. Just enjoy yourself, man. You know what YOLO is? Yeah. You only live once, so enjoy it, man. To the utmost. Why not? You don't live twice. The truth is, you live twice. Once in this world, once in the world to come. So you don't want to destroy the world to come. But honestly, forgetting about all the jokes and these things, what's so bad with having intimacy before you get married? Okay. So you're not disciplined. Is that it? So you get disciplined at 40. What's wrong with that? Nobody's disciplined at 20. Why? Most people are not. Right. Why? You're right. So you know what was actually was on the radio? Everyone knows Dennis Prager? He's a talk show host, 870, I think, from 9 to 12 in the morning. I don't know if he's tall, but he has white hair now. He's a genius. He has written books, and he's like, he's almost Orthodox, conservative Orthodox. Very, very nice guy. Very knowledgeable guy. So actually, the Maimonides writes a few things. One of the things that he writes is, I just want to think how to say it. When somebody has intimacy before they get married, right? Obviously, that person doesn't have any honor for his body. It's just open to anything. Would you want that girl or that boy to be the father or the mother of your children? Mind you, somebody that had 10 girlfriends or somebody had 10 boyfriends. Would you want that girl to be the mother of your kids? No. Probably not, right? You want to marry somebody decent. More decent. So then, obviously, when before marriage you had intimacy with somebody, gave you all the pleasures that you wanted, everything that you wished for. But when you're going to marry a pure girl, it's not funny, it's very serious. When you marry, it's not funny at all. When you marry a pure girl, maybe it won't satisfy you the way your girlfriend did. Possible. So where are you going to get your pleasure from? You can't get it from your own wife. You're going to get it outside. That's why you have so much garbage going in the secular world. Because they did all the wrong stuff before they got married. And they don't get satisfied from their own wife or from their own husband. So they go somewhere else to get it. You ever imagine you never tasted chocolate in your life? And they give you chocolate for the first time? How does it taste? Awesome, right? Exactly. So somebody never had no experience before he got married. The first experiences with his own spouse is like you gave him paradise. He doesn't go anywhere else. I'm telling you, ignorance in this is a bliss. That's number one.
So what if it's a couple that's about to get married, like let's say next week? Why would they still not be allowed?
Okay, you're right. That reason might not apply, the reason that I told you. But before you came in, we had like the Kabbalistic reason. You know what I'm saying? We are, like he says, we're not animals that we do our pleasure. Marriage is a godly thing. This act is a very, very holy act. It's a godly thing. So you do obviously properly. But you're right. If you're getting married next week, this thing doesn't apply. But it just explains, again, you know what, people, I was one time in a college, like it says, oh, you got to share your emotions, don't suppress your emotions. You know what I'm saying? Our parents never did this and have successful marriages. And again, honestly, the marriage, future marriage could be in danger if they do all the garbage that they're doing. And why did I mention Dennis Prager's name? He was on the radio, had a talk show. And then everybody that called, I listened for 10, 15 minutes, that was years ago. He said, Dennis, I can tell you that my marriage had many challenges, every single one of them, because of all the nonsense in the Western world. Okay, that was one thing that I wanted to discuss with you. If you have any questions, please ask before we go to the next one. Sorry, it was a very sensitive thing, but it's good to know. Besides the fact, let me ask you something else. Do you know why there's so many intermarriages today? One of the reasons. Intermarriages. One, I'm not saying all the reasons, one of the reasons. You know, when you go again, I have nothing against, whatever, Orientals, or let's say Mexicans and things. They have no expectation usually, right? You know, there was one of these Persian guys that married a Mexican girl because they had a tough time with a Jewish girl. So this Mexican lady said, you know what, I don't even need a house. We sleep in the store. They got no money. They got married, they slept in the store with him. And then after they made a lot of money, you know what I'm saying? So it says a Jewish girl would never do that, right? Especially a Persian girl would never do that, correct? So imagine somebody does all these wrong things with non-Jewish people, or whatever I'm saying. Everybody, no discrimination, in high school. And then he wants to get married to a Jewish girl or a Jewish boy. And they make a lot of trouble. So he says, you know what? That Oriental, that Mexican, that Christian, that Muslim that I went out with was much better. No expectation. He will always fall back on that. That's one of the reasons why there's intermarriages. Because you get involved emotionally and you actually get attached to that person. And then Jewish boys and girls are not so easy to get married to all the time. Correct? Can you go out on a date with a Corolla when you go out with a Persian girl? Probably not. Right? But if you have a Mercedes, you have a better chance. But if you go with an Oriental or a Mexican,
They don't care.
they don't care. You could go with a bicycle. I'm just kidding, but no, I'm very serious. Why put yourself in that danger? I'm serious, guys. And do the way God wants. You're not only hurting yourself, you're hurting the non-Jew too. Go ahead.
I'm honestly not trying, I don't understand the point you're trying to make.
So, because I started saying, why is it so bad to be immoral before we get married? So I gave the Kabbalistic reason, and then I went through the social reasons.
Right, what does that have to do with cardio? I don't understand.
So I said, no, people have expectations. The Persian or the Jewish girl, they're not going to live in downtown, they have a lot of expectations. So if I never went out with a non-Jewish girl, okay, whatever, this is the Jewish thing, I try to find somebody. But if I went out, with people that have no expectations, especially other religions, and then I start dating at the right age, I see the non-Jew was very much better than the Jew. It might be that way. That's one of the reasons that we have a lot of intermarriages. Sorry guys, maybe I sound stupid a little bit, but
I definitely get what you're saying, but I don't think you should date like based on the girl. The girl thinks you have money. That's not how you should.
No, of course not. I was not talking about dating. I was talking about not having experience before you get married. Keep yourself as a hero. That's what I was discussing.
And the race wise, I agree. I feel like yeah, like a lot of Persian girls expect, you know,
A lot of money.
a lot of money, but I feel like there's definitely other races that are Jewish as well. You know, it's not just Mexicans born Jewish. You know what I mean?
I didn't get what you asked.
I'm trying to say like let's say like there's Brazilians who are Jewish as well. Their expectations are. I'm saying I feel like it's just a Persian community type.
Yeah, the expectations are less. You're right.
Why a lot of these girls today, but I noticed my older cousins, they're not getting married. No, it's like they have very wide expectations.
Exactly. That makes it difficult. You're right. Yeah, I was just discussing that it's very dangerous for a person to have experience before he gets married. It might ruin his marriage later on. I was just saying that social thing. First of all, might not be satisfied from his own wife or husband. And second thing, when he has difficult time dating, you gotta open the door for somebody. I think one of the kids at the door. Go ahead.
I was going to ask, what would be worse for a Jewish person? Would it be worse to date a Jewish girl or a Jewish person who's like done many sins like her whole life and most like could commit more sins, or dating or like marrying a non-Jew who's like doesn't do 20 sins and like she like prays to like I should praise the
But even even let's say if the girl that avoided a lot of sins, if they stop sinning and they regret it, they're forgiven.
when they don't stop sinning.
Then you shouldn't marry them. They're not for you. Again, I didn't say Jews are better or worse. Anyways, guys, let's go to the next one. Let's get something a little bit more interesting. See, guys, what we're going to study today, we all know it's during the Omer now, right? It's the days that we count the Omer. Besides the counting of the Omer, anybody's familiar? We don't get married in these days. No marriages. Why? No weddings. Still the 33rd day of Omer. Let me explain what Omer is. You know, the second day of Pesach, we start counting until Shavuot, which is 49 days later, correct? So then up to 33 days, 34 days, no marriages. No happy things. We're actually mourning. What are we mourning about?
Our students.
Go ahead. Who said that? You said it? Students of Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva had a college, a Jewish college, yeshiva of 24,000 students. How many students do you have in SMC? No, it's like 4,000 or 5,000. Maybe now it's 2,000. But pre-COVID, it was like 4,000 or 5,000. Seriously, it was like a lot. Maybe UCLA. I don't even know if UCLA have 24,000. So Rabbi Akiva had a yeshiva, not in the same city, 24,000 students. That's a lot. 24,000 students. So the Gemara says these 24,000
Was it 12?
was 12,000 pairs. That's 24,000 students. So what happens is these people, the Gemara says, because they disrespected each other, or were saying bad things about each other, so God sent a plague in them within 33 days, 34 days, some people say. From Passover to Shavuot, within 33, 34 days, they all died. So we are mourning for them. Those were like giants. So a couple questions come up. Number one, first of all, what was the main motto of Rabbi Akiva? He said he had a statement that he always said it. You guys know what Rabbi Akiva said all his life? Love your fellow just like yourself. That's one of the greatest rules of the Torah. Isn't that funny? His own students didn't keep it. Everywhere he went, love your fellow. It's a very general rule, very important rule of the Torah. And his own students didn't keep it. Isn't that funny? Doesn't make sense. How could these guys that actually heard this, saying, not respect each other? Rabbi Akiva says you have to love your fellow just like yourself. So actually, we're going to discuss it a little bit. And then also, why did they suddenly die after these 33 days? They suddenly became disrespectful during these 33 days? It doesn't make sense. They were disrespectful for a long time. So why did they die during these days? So we're going to discuss that a little bit. You see, people, the Gemara says, just like our faces are not the same, our mentality is not the same either. No two people look alike, no two people think the same. Of course, we're compatible, but we're all different. The problem is that when I don't think like you, I might come and disrespect you. This is something which is not supposed to be. And we see it in politics today, right? If you're, I don't know, a Democrat, you're a Republican, I'm not getting into it. You're different, they bash you, they kill you, they say all the bad about you. Right? There's no more like olden days discussion. Okay, you have your mentality as a Democrat, what's your idea? You're Republican, what's your idea? They never used to bash each other. There was respect. Now there's nothing. Just you go kill each other, destroy each other. So when Rabbi Akiva used to teach his Torah, his idea, each student understood it differently. You know, I might give a lecture here, you might give a lecture, but each one has a different understanding. Is that clear? So then each one actually says, Rabbi Akiva says, you got to love your fellow. He wanted to make sure that his fellow understands what Rabbi Akiva says. So he started explaining to him, this is what Rabbi Akiva said. Because the other student thought differently. He says, no, that's not what Rabbi Akiva said. He said something else. Now, this was a big yeshiva in different cities. They didn't have a chance to discuss it with Rabbi Akiva. So what happens, imagine, I'm going to bring you an example. You're all religious Jews, you know, more or less. Imagine I'm going to come and tell you something that Moses says and I distort it. How would you feel about it?
If you tell me something like,
I said, this is what Moses says. Put on tefillin on your left foot. Just some example of me.
I would think, you don't know what you're saying.
Not only that, and if I pressure you, you're going to get angry and disrespect me. So imagine Rabbi Akiva taught to so many students because each one had a different mentality, each one understood it differently. So I'm coming out and telling you this is what Rabbi Akiva said, but you feel I'm taking your teacher's words and I'm twisting it. Of course you're going to get angry. So they started disrespecting each other. You see that because they care too much?
How do we know that he taught them the same thing he taught other people? Or how do we know he even taught the correct way?
No, listen, Rabbi Akiva is Rabbi Akiva, whatever he taught, he taught. Rabbi Akiva was the top person in times of the Mishnah, was really top guy. It was like he was no Dr. Fauci, that lies. But I'm just getting into politics.
Like, why can't you be Dr. Akiva or Rabbi Akiva?
Oh, I don't know what he knows. Those guys sat and learned. Those guys, sat and learned 18, 20 hours a day. They're not like us, that we have so many distractions. So, the guy knew he was the teacher of 24,000 students. They went to him because he was a genius person. But again, each one understood it differently and they cared. Each one tried to explain to the other student what Rabbi Akiva said, but each one felt that they're distorting his words. So because they cared and they loved each other, they started hating each other. Is that clear, people? Why am I saying this? Because again, sometimes when people are different, we make fun of them, we don't respect them. It could be. You go to I'm sure you have classmates, some of them seem to be weird to us. Who said, maybe I'm the weird guy, honestly. Maybe I'm the weird guy. Who says you're the weird guy? Maybe none of us are weird. I don't know. Maybe both of us are weird. I don't know what it is. Who's here to judge? So those students, because each one thought Rabbi Akiva's words are being twisted, they started making fun of each other. Until, and this went for a long time. It says these days between Pesach and Shavuot are great days of judgment. Very, very judgmental times. So at that time, God is more judgmental. That's why during these periods of time, they got killed. Now, why did I discuss this? I want to go ahead.
So are you saying God in these 33 days is very judgmental towards us as well?
Towards the world is more judgmental, exactly.
So we should watch what we do.
Definitely.
But regardless.
Well, you should be watching every time, but
So these days we should be extra watching.
Exactly. Usually God is on the throne of mercy. He lets many things
Now
go.
it's like he's dead. Next 35 days.
Now, less. Already 18 days passed. So you have another 15 days. That's why some people don't go on trips on these days. You know that?
But what does trips have to do with it?
Well, because when traveling, it might go through dangerous places.
No.
So what's the difference between this and the thing in like knowing?
No is worse. Those 9 days are more severe than this.
What if you're on a trip before and during those times you're on that trip?
Yeah, so they try not to travel during the 9 days. You try to extend.
So let's say like before the 9 days and you happen to be there and then you come back after.
If you're going to come back during the 9 days, give a lot of charity. That's what it says. That's what it says. Give a lot of charity and hopefully it will be good. You do kindness, God give you.
Gives adopting an exception to the rule.
No, so that will help you. You're not accept. I didn't say you should travel. If it happens, you bought your ticket, you didn't realize, so give some charity. Clear? But what do I want to bring with this, guys? Please, we have to look at the beauty of each other. Everybody's different. You might seem that guy is different than you, but respect the person. Is that clear? Imagine if I would judge everybody. Imagine a religious guy. I'm not too religious. Imagine a religious guy is going to judge everybody based on his standards. He would hate everyone. No? If you're not like me religious, you can't be like that. You have to actually be on the kind side. Let me just go to the last thing, guys. Maybe a couple more. I hope nobody's bored yet. Are you guys bored? Huh?
I just have one more question about repenting your sins.
Yeah.
What is a mikveh? What does that do for like your sins and stuff? Like, what's the point?
You guys understand the question? You know what a mikveh is, right? Right? Some water connected to natural water. Going to the mikveh, what does that do to you?
That's it. Repent. How does that work?
No, I wish it was that easy.
Yeah. I can go get over.
You have a few mikvahs here.
I got a dang spot. It's nice and clean.
All the mikvahs are spoiled because they clean it every day. Let me tell you what a mikvah does. The mikvah really, it's not, if somebody does not repent, mikvah doesn't do anything. You know what the idea of a mikvah is?
No.
So somebody actually, there was a person that wanted to convert to Judaism. Somebody that converts to Judaism, besides accepting the Torah as going to promise to keep Shabbat, they have to go to the mikvah too. This was a girl that had a problem with it. He says, what does the mikvah teach you? What is it for? You want the water, you come out, what's the point of it? So with that, I've actually explained something very, very beautiful. He says when a baby is born, right, in the placenta, there's a lot of water. Correct? I guess so. I don't know what it is exactly. But the bag, right, is full of water. When the bag breaks and a lot of water comes out, you see it's time for the baby to come out. So it says the concept of water shows on a rebirth or a newborn. So it says when somebody goes under the mikveh, under the water, right, when she becomes a Jew, it's like, I'm a new person, I'm not the same guy anymore. That's a concept of the mikveh. When somebody repents and he goes to the mikveh, he's saying, you know what, I really repented, now I'm like a new person, a new guy. But if he just goes to the water, it doesn't change his ways. It really doesn't do anything. It's only after a person repents, the mikveh will help. You get what I'm saying? It's like a newborn. You're a new person, you're not the same guy anymore. You're not an old guy.
So it's not just going in the water, you really have to think about it.
Just going in the water doesn't do anything. Not only that, the Maimonides says, when somebody touches, let's say, a dead animal, he becomes impure, he has to go to the mikveh and come out to become pure. Imagine I hold that dead animal and I go with it under the water 50 times. Doesn't do anything. You have to let go of the source of impurity, then the water of the mikveh helps, right? If I'm sinful and I'm continuing to do sins, it's like I'm holding that dead animal. What's so funny, guys? Seriously, a little bit of respect. What is, what I'm saying? It's like I'm holding that dead animal. So going to the mikveh 100 times doesn't help.
Is that the same case if you like run over a pigeon with a car or something? But like a squirrel, going mikveh?
I don't get the connection.
Huh? Like if you accidentally like run over an animal like in the street, like a squirrel.
Accident, what can you do? Nothing.
As long as it's intentional.
Yeah, you can't harm animals.
Isn't it also that if it's like a graveyard or something? Like you're near.
Mikveh doesn't help for a graveyard.
Huh?
I don't want to get into it. It doesn't help. Mikveh doesn't help.
Means if you touch the dead animal.
It doesn't help.
What if you touch like a dead body or that?
It doesn't help. Mikveh doesn't help. For that, you need for Mashiach to come, the red cow, touching a dead body. Nothing takes away the impurity until Mashiach comes.
Based on your time as a rabbi, what have most people gone to the mikveh?
You talk about people, just extra purity.
Just people that you know.
Extra purity, that's it. Like when they want to pray, or when, what I'm saying, for Shabbat, it says it helps that, you will receive the holiness of Shabbat by going to the mikveh more. It's only extra purity. For men, I'm talking about.
For women, it's men.
Once they're married. Yeah. Not before they're married. So you want to go to the next part, the last thing we're going to learn? We're going to actually discuss something very, very important. Could be that for some people this is repetitious, but hopefully for most of you guys it's not. One of the great commandments, the hardest commandment that we have in this week's portion is love your fellow just like yourself. So over here there's a very big problem. The Torah doesn't say love your fellow. It says love your fellow just like yourself. Now isn't that impossible? I usually love myself more than other people. Nobody loves somebody else just like himself. Maybe a spouse, maybe love your wife more than yourself. If not that, maybe you love your children more than yourself. But the Torah doesn't say love your kids more than yourself. The Torah says love every fellow just like yourself. So here the Nachmanides says, I don't understand this mitzvah. It doesn't make sense. Because God created us, He knows that naturally I love myself more. How can He give me a commandment that I cannot keep? That's question number one. Go ahead.
Does this apply, I know a lot of Jews, Israelis that, I don't know, they don't treat non-Jews. They only apply this to other Jewish people,
You have to love everybody.
Right,
Regarding a Jew, you have to love him just like yourself.
No, I'm saying what is a non-Jew.
You have to love him, of course. Let me ask you, if you love your brother more, are you racist? No. You're not. You love your sister more, you're racist. So I'm saying we're going to discuss that soon. I don't want to get into it, but again, we're going to see how the souls are. You have to love everybody. The thing is, when it comes to a Jewish person, you have to love him just like yourself. Does that make sense? So the Ramban says that doesn't make any sense. Because naturally, you like yourself more. That's number one. Number two, he actually brings a proof from the Talmud that you could love yourself more. Let's go through these people. Imagine I'm stuck in the desert with my friend. We only have one pitcher of water. You're going to be in the desert for 2 weeks. If you're going to share it, we'll both die. But if I'm going to take it, I'm going to live and he's going to die, God forbid. So what am I supposed to do? Take it myself, let my friend die, give it to my friend, let myself die, share it, and both should die. What am I supposed to do? So Rabbi Akiva says the final halacha, your life comes first. So whoever owns the water should take it because your life comes first.
If you find it.
What?
If you find it.
You find the water?
You find the water.
Okay, so if you pick it up, it becomes yours. If it's nobody's. Yeah, but whatever, the case is yours. The water is yours, you pick it up, you make it yours. You don't steal it from anybody else. I'm saying the water was yours. So then your life comes first. There's a joke. If you have only one cigarette, should you smoke it or give it to your friend? Give it to your friend because your life comes first. It's a joke. Because cigarette kills. That's only a joke. It's not true at all. But anyways, what do we see from this story of Rabbi Akiva? That I'm allowed to love myself more. From the fact that it says whoever owns the water should take it, that proves that I could love myself more. Otherwise, if I'm supposed to love you just like myself, should have given me a choice. You could take it yourself, you could give it to your friend. So these are the two questions that he has. Because of this, only the Nachmanides could say this. It says this mitzvah is an exaggeration. The Torah never meant you have to love your fellow just like yourself. All the Torah meant was treat him just like yourself. In your heart, you can love yourself more. But don't scream at him just like you don't want somebody to scream at you. You can't control your heart, he says, but you can control your actions. In action, treat him just like yourself. Is that clear? So according to the Nachmanides, this mitzvah is an exaggeration. You don't have to love a fellow just like yourself. You can love yourself more. Just treat him just like yourself. You could control your actions and your speech. But we're going to learn the Kabbalistic point of view. Kabbalah says that really you have to love a fellow just like yourself. How's that? You guys know that Adam, the first man, Adam Arishon, he had a general soul that included everyone. What's the proof to that? Adam and Eve are not supposed to die, right? Why did death come to the world? Because they ate from the fruit of the tree. So I have a very simple question. I didn't eat the fruit. They did. Let them die, and the kids should live forever. Why are we dying because of that? That's not fair. So the Arizal, who was a master of Kabbalah, says, because their souls was a general soul. Once they had children, their soul split. Now you have millions of souls. They're like little limbs of a big body. Just like you have a body, you have the brains, you have the heart, you got the liver, you got the feet, you even have the toenails. But all of them together make one big, gigantic body. So Adam Arishon included everyone. Not that you're split into millions or billions of people. Each one of us is a small limb that makes that gigantic soul. Is that clear? This is a very big kiddush, a very big novelty that Kabbalah says. Even though our bodies are separated, that's only our bodies. But really, our souls are not separated at all. With this, that explains many things. You guys have learned that it says, Israel Arevim Zelazeh, Jews are responsible one for the other. That means if you do a mitzvah, benefits me. If I do a sin, harms you. Why? What's the connection? So again, because if you have one single body, if you get an ingrown toenail, does that only damage your toenail, or it causes a weakness in the entire body? In the entire body, or even if you have a cold, makes your whole body, saying weak. Why? Because since these are the limbs of the same body, so disease in one part brings a weakness in the entire body. So here the Arizal says all of us are little limbs of a huge, gigantic spiritual body. Therefore, your mitzvah brings health to the entire body. My sin, God forbid, could actually damage everyone. That's why I'm responsible for the other person. Another thing, when we confess our sins every day, do I say I stole it or we say we stole? What's the language in Hebrew? I don't say I, we say Gazalnu. Anybody speaks Hebrew here? Who speaks Hebrew? Okay, how do I say I stole? Ganafti. How do you say we stole? Ganavnu. Ganavnu or Gazalnu. Now every day when you confess, you don't say Gazalti, I say Gazalnu. Why am I saying trash about other Jews? Say trash about yourself. I stole. You say Ashamnu, Bagadnu, Gazalnu, right? So Arizal explains, because when one Jew sins, so that actually affects everybody else. I'm not saying trash about them. I'm saying trash about myself. But when I say Gazalnu, I stole, because we're all interconnected, my stealing brings a damage to everybody. Is that clear? They go even further, people. They say in every human being, in every Jew, you have the part of everybody else's soul too. Could you be able to understand, Josh? In you, there is every other soul of the people.
Which people?
Everybody. I'm talking about the Jews now. Everybody's soul is in you, part of them. And they bring a very nice medical proof. You got to see my hands, right, guys? Is the blood in my hands different than the blood in my feet, or the same blood?
Yeah.
So I could say in the hand you have the same life force as the foot, correct or not? In the foot you have the same life force as your eyes, correct or not? So in every Jew you have a part of every other Jew within you. So it's not that you're separate limbs, but together you make one big gigantic body. Within you there's every other person. So when I do a sin, I'm not only damaging my part, I'm damaging everybody else, which is part of me. And when you do a mitzvah, you actually, let's not talk about sins, good things. When you do a good deed, you're actually benefiting everybody. You see how powerful you are? You see, I think in my private house, I want to do something wrong. Who did I damage? Nobody. The worst, I damaged myself. But according to Kabbalah, that's not true. You do one mitzvah, it's so powerful that benefits everybody in the world. Because everybody is included within you. I'm not kidding. And if I do a sin, I'm not only damaging myself, I'm damaging the entire world. Exactly. Or self-destructive. But more, not just self, but everybody else.
Besides from yourself, you're hurting other people's souls.
And if you do a mitzvah, you're helping everybody else's soul. So if you believe that, you understand what the Torah says, love your fellow just like yourself. The Torah is saying, go beyond your body. Don't look at a body that you're separate people. That's what the Nachmanides said. From the point of view of the body, if I'm limited to my body, I can't love you just like myself. It's impossible. And we're all limited to our bodies. I'm not saying no. Nobody's Moshe Rabbeinu. There's only one Moshe Rabbeinu. But again, at least when I go beyond my physical body, I start thinking, hey, our souls are all united. Even if I don't get to a level to love somebody else just like myself, believe me, at least the hatred wouldn't be there. If they would teach this to us from childhood, you would never really hate somebody else. Because it's like you're hating yourself. Is that clear? If I hate you, I'm hating myself. It's like the hand hates the foot. It doesn't make sense at all. Is that clear, people? If you have any questions, go ahead.
Right, but how is it fair? Because I can't control Noah's life. I can't control his life. It's like, how is that fair to me? That he is a part-time holder of my soul. Because
Let me ask you a question. If your hand is infected, it's not fair to the rest of your body either.
what?
If your hand is infected, it's not fair to the rest of your body either. What are you going to do? Cut your hand off? No, I'm not making fun. You're going to try to fix it. But again, your hand got infected. You're not going to cut it off. You're going to heal it. You're right. It's not fair. My obligation is to try to bring him closer, slowly, with a kind word, saying, with something, bring him closer to God.
Right. But some people take it in an offensive way when we're telling them to do something, but in reality, you can output in the spiritual world.
It depends how you talk to him.
Any recommendation on words?
You first have to show that you're his friend. The previous Lubavitch Rebbe said, you want to make somebody religious? No. You want to make somebody religious? Invite him to your house Friday night. Let him have a meal by you. Don't go to him right away. Hey, fix yourself. Nobody's interested to be fixed. You hear that, Josh? Nobody's interested to be fixed right away. Show that you're a brother. Show that you're a sister. Once you do that, in a way, in a loving way, I really care about you.
So kind of like what you're doing right now with all of us, explaining to us these mitzvahs and